Hey everyone, so this is my top 10 best films of 2019, at least that I saw. I, again, didn't get a chance to see everything, but here we go. These are, the films that I thought were just the best of everything that came out. It was really tough. There's a few things that didn't quite make the cut that I really hoped they would, but, a few things I knew was going to be on there. When I reviewed them, I said, hey, this is going to be on my list, and they're there. So if you're wondering about the worst films, I do negative and then positive, just to end on a high note. So check out my other video on all the films that were just the worst of the year. So here we go. Number 10 on the list is Serenity 2019. Serenity 2019 was directed by Stephen Knight, stars Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, and Jason Clarke. So this film, it's the only film I put on, I'm laughing because this is the only film I put on the list because it is so bad it's good. This film is the culmination of pretentiousness in film, and it's pretentious in the way that it thought its plot was just amazing. It thought it had a killer twist. Everything was in line, and it's just clear no one was able to take a step back and realize just kind of how absurd the film is. And no spoilers in any of these, so I'm just going to tell you right now, it's about a fisherman in a small village whose ex-wife approaches him and explains she wants to hire him to murder her husband, who is abusive. That already doesn't draw you in. Just there's a big twist coming through, so you can't really see too much about the film, but it just lingers on the absurd. Even before the twist is revealed, things are just kind of crazy. Matthew McConaughey is he is providing himself to Diane Lane, which, why wouldn't you? It's Diane Lane. She's paying for his services in an intimate way. And there's a line in the movie where she says, because he's a fisherman in this village, so there's a line in the film where she says, "You're a pretty good hooker." And he goes, "I'm a hooker who can't afford any hooks." And you could just tell people thought this dialogue was just going to slide right out and just, be real quick and, Aaron Sorkin levels. And it just falls flat. There's just, even after the twist is revealed, it becomes more and more absurd. And it's just a perfect, cute little film. That's why it's the not quite as good as everything else. That's why it's number 10. And I really put it on here. I knew I was going to make this number 10 because I want to spread the word and make sure as many people see this film as possible going in, not having seen anything else. So I don't even remember what I gave it a score of. I think it's like an 8 or a 7 or something, but it's definitely within recommendation range. So please just go see it. That's the only reason it's number 10 on this list. Number 9 is Isn't It Romantic? That's the name of the movie. The number 9 isn't, it's number 9. Isn't It Romantic is directed by Todd Strauss-Schulson, stars Rebel Wilson, Liam Hemsworth, Adam Devine. So this was a February release, and I was just thinking, oh, it's just a Rebel Wilson vehicle, released, during the month of love, and it's, romantic comedy. And it's about a woman who gets zapped into a movie version of her life as if it was a rom-com. I was like, all right, let's see it. It doesn't seem too bad. And I was very surprised at how well it's done. The production value, just there's a musical number put in the film. The direction is amazing. There's a part where Rebel Wilson's in her apartment and her friend is walking by the window and sees her, and they do this panning shot, and he appears in her door, and it's just filmed so well. Director Todd Strauss-Schulson has done this before. He did a film called The Final Girls, which I've not seen but now really want to, in which a group of girls get stuck inside a horror movie and dealing with kind of the tropes of that. And he said he'd love to do this with, another genre. There's a lot of times where Rebel Wilson's outfits are taken directly from Pretty Woman, and it's got so many callbacks and references, but none of them feel like they're just thrown in. I'm giving Isn't It Romantic an 8 out of 10, and recommending it just purely on its charm. Number 8 is Avengers Endgame. Avengers Endgame is directed by Joe and Anthony Russo, and it stars everyone. Literally everyone is in this movie. So when I saw Avengers Endgame, I didn't like it as much as everyone else. It's only number 8 on the list. And it's not because I think it's a bad film. It's not as strong as Infinity War was. After reviewing it, I went to IMDb to look up all the ratings that were the same as mine and see why people were giving it the same score as me, and my opinion was completely different than theirs. It's just a very subjective film, and I think that at times you're maybe not always going to agree with everything in it. But again, it's on my good list because it is still very good. The acting is phenomenal. The directing is spot on. Everything's shot really well. Not everything flows well. Not everyone makes decisions that you can agree with. But overall, the film is just such a beautiful send-off to several characters who were essentially ending their run. And it's just, one of the big films that I was quoting with all my friends, and that's why it's on the list, because it is just a milestone in, this cinematic universe that's been out there. I'm giving Avengers Endgame a 7 out of 10. Next is It Chapter 2. It Chapter 2 is directed by Andy Muschietti, stars James McAvoy, Jessica Chastain, Bill Hader, Isaiah Mustafa, Jay Ryan, James Ransom, Andy Bean, and Bill Skarsgård. Sorry about that. I just want to make sure I got all the cast because everyone in it is really good. The adult versions of everyone were pretty much really well cast. I don't really have too many complaints. They seem like they're playing the same character, which is, in some instances, even look a lot like the person they're playing. The acting is definitely one of the high points of the film. I said after I reviewed it that I would probably put it on the list, and so here it is. But it's not just on this because I said I wanted to put it on there. It's a nice little send-off. I do have some complaints on it. It's why it's so low on the list, not high up there. The editing in this is really bad at times. But again, being a conclusion to the story and tying things together, a lot of people in the original knocked the adult version of the story, which I found maybe not as compelling as the kid version, but I still found it compelling. And I knew coming to this, I would also find it compelling, and it did not disappoint in my eyes. So I'm giving It Chapter 2 an 8 out of 10. Number 6 on the list is Joker. Joker was directed by Todd Phillips. It stars Joaquin Phoenix, Robert De Niro, Zazie Beetz, and Francis Conroy. So 2 clown movies in a row. Joker, I really liked. And after seeing it, I knew why I liked it, but I don't really know why everyone else liked it. The film is designed to make you feel uncomfortable at times. You don't know when Joker's going to kill someone, when he's going to hug someone. You don't really know what he's going to do. And they build up this tension a lot in ways that don't exactly make you feel like you know exactly what's going to happen, which I liked. I'm used to seeing films like these. And a lot of times I almost felt like it was like Oscar season. I was watching one of the art house films. Todd Phillips, he's done a lot of comedy. And to see him step into a film like this just kind of shows his talent. The film is really well directed. There was a lot to dissect in it. The ending especially. I loved the second to last shot of the film, which should have been the last shot of the film. It has a line in it where, you really need to dissect exactly what's going on in the film. And it doesn't always spell things out to you, which I really liked. I'm surprised. I'm sure there were some other, Batman fans who showed up like dressed like Batman, and at the part he's dancing in the bathroom and stuff. Why is he dancing? Why is he dancing? So I'm sure some people just didn't pick up on as much of the art house elements to it. So I was completely wrong. I left the theater thinking, oh wow, I liked it, but it's gonna bomb. And here you go, it's making bank. So I'm giving Joker an 8 out of 10. It is, again, a really good film worth seeking out, but it seems like a lot of people have seen it already. Violent controversy withstanding. Number 5 on the list is Us. The film Us. We're not on the list. Just the film Us. It's Us. Us was directed by Jordan Peele, stars Lupita Nyong'o, Winston Duke, and Elizabeth Moss. I loved Get Out. It was, behind Baby Driver, it was my favorite film of 2017. Jordan Peele, if he directs paint drawing, I'll watch it. I mean, he's just showing coming out of the gate strong. And Us isn't as good as Get Out, but it is still really good. The themes of it are a little bit more hidden. Some people are, pointing out some of the things in it, wondering what it represents. Clearly it's class systems. Us looks a lot like US, like the United States. So there's a lot to dissect in it, which I really enjoyed. And I left the theater thinking about it. There's a twist at the end that really has you thinking about it, and I enjoyed that a lot. I love movies that make me think about them far after seeing it, and there were a lot of films where I kind of forgot if I had seen it or not at times. And even for this list, I kind of had to go through everything I saw to make sure I included things on there that, I really wanted to. And this was one that stood out to me. It's, again, not as polished as Get Out, but it's still really suspenseful. It's about a family that discovers they have duplicates that are coming to kill them or attack them. And there's a sequence where the father of the house is running into the house and he's closing the door as his double is running to get him. And I've had nightmares like that. Well, not exactly like that, but I've had that nightmare where you're being chased by something, you're trying to close the door, and it was very exciting in those kind of moments. Jordan Peele he puts so much care and love into the films he makes that it's just really nice to see. And it's got some elements to it that are a bit more harder to grasp than with Get Out. Don't mean to keep comparing the two, but it's a little more in terms of the fantastical, but it's still really well done. And for that, I'm giving Us an 8 out of 10. Number 4 on the list is John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum. John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum was directed by Chad Stahelski, stars Keanu Reeves, Halle Berry, Ian McShane, and Lawrence Fishburne. I'm a huge fan of the John Wick series, so it's a bit of a fanboy, so it's no surprise this one ends up on there. Again, the theme of movies on this list are people who care, people who aren't trying to make cash grabs or just make money, but are legit making films because they like film. It's people who care a lot about the action they're directing. The film is just phenomenal. All the films in the series have been directed so phenomenally. And to see that continued into this one, there is no shot in the film that is, too hokey, too out there. There are times where the scenes maybe run on a little too long, some of the action scenes, but they're so well directed. It's nice to not have so many cuts and everything run around and, hard to follow. Exactly where everything is. If the film's action scenes cut, it's for a good reason. Halle Berry has a small role in the film. She shows up for a good portion of it, and she's so good in this. It reminds me of why she became famous in the first place. She's just, in just a small amount of time, you get her character, you understand what she's about, and that's kind of true about a lot of the characters in this. There's a bit of humor, a bit of violence, a lot of violence, but it's definitely a worthy, entry in the now series as they're working on the 4th one, and I'll be there to see it. Giving John Wick Chapter 3 a 9 out of 10. Number 3 on the list for the best films is SpiderMan Far From Home. SpiderMan Far From Home was directed by John Watts. It stars Tom Holland, Samuel L. Jackson, and Jake Gyllenhaal. So I just really liked SpiderMan Far From Home. It was just a fun experience. I saw it with my friends, and it was a theater that was laughing. I was laughing. The humor in it is really well done. The film definitely sometimes hides some of its faults with humor. There's some times where it kind of brushes things off just by making a joke, and that's fine. To me, what was most compelling about it was this continuation of Peter Parker and Spider-Man, just his relationship with Tony Stark, and, again, no spoilers, but if you've seen Endgame, you kind of know where that lies, and there's a big kind of question they're using in regards to where they're going to take Spider-Man next. And for a while, they didn't have him after all that legal stuff and, with Sony. But, he's back in the MCU now before he even left. So it's just great to see what they're doing with this character. And, I've been a Spider-Man fan forever because he was made to be someone who was very, relatable. Because Peter's relationship with MJ in this, they're just kids. And it's great to see, the characters play that off. Like with Homecoming, here you get that John Hughes element to it. It's clear John Hughes' influence is still in the film series up to this point, and I hope they continue. I'm giving Spider-Man Far From Home a 9 out of 10. Number 2 on the list of the best movies of 2019 is Shazam. Shazam was directed by David F. Sandberg, stars Zachary Levi, Mark Strong, Asher Angel, and Jack Dylan Grazer. This is the DC EU's attempt to continue to turn horror directors into their line. They've got James Wan for Aquaman, and now they've got Sandberg for this. He's done a lot of horror movies, and I thought he did really well here. I had very little complaints about this film, but otherwise, it had just great acting. Zachary Levi, you believe he's a kid in this. Its references and influences on it from Big are very apparent. Well, Jack Dylan Grazer just kills it in this. I feel bad his show didn't last very long because he is really good in this and does a great job. The film never gets too serious. The film is just entertaining. I'm surprised it didn't do as well as I thought it was going to. Leaving the theater, I assumed this was gonna, make bank, and it did do really well. I'm not saying it did poorly, If you look at the numbers, it did decently, but I just thought it was going to be, a big game changer. And I'm hoping it did do very well enough for the studio to understand that this is something we want to see more of. I'm for the one of the few times where when they introduced a little end credit scene, mid credit scene, and it introduced possibly new plot lines, I was like, yeah, I'll see that. Okay. I'm giving Shazam a 9 out of 10. Right. So, number 1. But before I list it, here are some honorable mentions that just couldn't quite make the cut, unfortunately. Even if I'd done more, but then we'd have an even longer video. So here is all the honorable mentions. And now, the number 1 film that I saw this year is Knives Out. Knives Out is directed by Rian Johnson, stars Daniel Craig, Ana de Armas, Christopher Plummer, and a lot of other really, really good actors. So, Rian Johnson's really good when he's not doing Star Wars. Not to say he's bad at Star Wars, but he is done best in his other works. I wasn't always the biggest fan of Looper, but he early in his career did a neo-noir with Joseph Gordon-Levitt called Brick, which I highly recommend. Go check out Brick. And so with that being such a great send-off, a great love letter to film noir, as it's essentially a film noir in a high school with film noir dialogue, I was really excited to see what he would do with a true murder mystery. Daniel Craig plays this over-the-top detective, and he's solving this murder. But without spoilers, early on you're giving a piece of the mystery that he doesn't have, and it elevates the film beyond just a simple murder mystery. It doesn't do it by the numbers. It does it differently. And the cast is amazing. They play this rich family who has a murder take place with their patriarch where he's killed, and everyone has a legit motive to do it. Everyone plays these rich, just stuffy characters who you want to hate. They're not a character that you dislike so much you're like, I hate it when they're on screen. When they're on screen, it's good. They're all so pretentious and two-faced, and some in more ways than others, some in alternate ways. They're all very well written. Not everyone gets the screen time that they probably should. There's a lot of characters, so not everyone is fully fleshed out. But for the most part, everything comes together really well. The cast is probably one of the best casts this year. It has so many good actors who just bring it. And again, with the theme of people making film because they like film, that's what a good film should be about. With this, it's so clear the cast really liked what they were doing. Everyone was having so much fun. So I'm giving Knives Out a 9 out of 10. I highly recommend it for anyone who is a fan of mystery or is just looking for a film that does things just a little differently in terms of a classic murder mystery. So that's it. That's all the films that I've ranked up there. So agree, disagree, comment below to a new year.